Now we are at the palace. The king asked his daughters if they loved him.
My beautiful daughter, express your love for me in words, if you can.
Most gracious Lord, you are the sun, you are the moon, you are the stars. My dear father, you are finer than the finest gold.
I must say that I love you as much as food needs salt.
But not a word came out of your mouth. Never want to see you again. Go and live with your salt.
Cordelia went to live in the king's salt mine deep under the ground. Everything there was salt. The walls, the floor, so on. And the king gave a banquet to celebrate his 90th birthday. Goneril and Regan gushed.
Dear father, what a marvelous feast you have prepared for us. The food is tasty and delicious.
The king took one bite and knew his daughters were lying. Without salt, the food tasted like nothing at all. The king could have imagined how important salt was until there wasn't enough of it. It was salt, you see, that kept the food from rotting. He cried.
My shoulders are starving. Soon there won't be anyone left to defend the kingdom.
The very next day, the miners returned and found big salty chunks of salt lying on the ground.
Thank God! Our swords are finally paying off!
One day, the miners struck at some especially hard salt. Their axes got stuck in the wall. That night, they went home fretting.
Tomorrow and salt.
The next morning, they arrived and they were amazed to find the axes loose and huge salty chunks lying on the ground.
How could this happen? What did you do? Did this? Tell us the truth. Tell us what you did, or well, no, you don't.
The princess saw that Clarence was in danger. So she got up and went to the wall, loosed both axes, and lifted one of them high above their head. With a tremendous force, she brought it down exactly where the miners had struck. Chunks of salt started coming apart from the wall.
It was the princess.
The king's mind was aflame now throughout the land, and everyone asked,
How does she do it?
The king ran out of things to say.
How do I do it? I must go and find out.
The next day, the king went to the mine in wonderment.
How did my mind become a palace of salt?
Most gracious Lord, we are our humble servants.
And the miners went to show the king how the mine worked. Then the king saw a man standing on the side. He had a chisel in his hands.
Was it you who did all of this? As thou shalt command. A genius.
The king started examining Clarence's carvings. The king stopped and stared at the statue.
Why, look, it's me.
The miners shouldn't get any credit for work they didn't do.
Last, the king turned to the miners.
How do you do it?
Reluctantly, the miners led the king to the pulleys. They pulled on the ropes and nothing happened. They pulled again and still nothing happened. The king was angry.
Why weren't the pulleys working?
And the miners were silent. They didn't know the pulleys worked. That is when they turned on Clarence, threatening him with an axe.
Look what you did.
The princess saw that Clarence was in danger. She stepped out of the shadows and walked over to the pulleys and put the pulleys working with a simple adjustment. The miners were terrified. They raced up the steps and out of the mine. They fled the kingdom and were never seen again.
Bravo! Well done!
As it was time to go, the king returned to the palace to be able to answer people's questions. As Clarence led Cordelia said,
Were I a princess and not a plain man, I'd kiss you like this. Were I a prince and not a plain man, my kiss would lift the curse and we'd both speak of love.
By now he knows I love him too.
No words. Have you no word
for me. The king shall have no more salt.
Slashing the bullies with their razor-sharp axe, screamed to Clarence.
Get out! Lock me in and throw away the key.
Clarence went to the palace and screamed.
Gracious sire, soon you will have no more salt. Let me try to find another way to keep your food from rotting.
I have faith in you.
Clarence placed a juicy red plum in the big block of ice. He let many days pass. Then he stuck in his thumb and pulled off the plum. You could tell it was still ripe.
Delicious. Now I'm appointing you as Baron.
Why is there no more salt? You were in the mine. Tell us.
Bring her to me. Bring the maiden to me.
Most gracious sir, my maiden, the mine, is your daughter Cordelia.
Liar! You're lying.
Our sister lives far away.
She has forsaken us all.
Sir, the maiden in the mine is your daughter, Cordelia.
If she's there, then why are you here?
No words, she said. I had no words.
No words. 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 To us, I who said the very same to her. Bring me my daughter. My daughter.
Cordelia prayed to the god to let her out and sighed. Prayed to the god to let her out and sighed.
How I long to breathe fresh air, to see the light of the day and feel the warmth of the sun.
That is when she picked up her axe and ate to pieces everything inside. The statues, the chandeliers, the fountain, the walls. So forcefully did she strike that soon the axes were broken.
A hammer, a chisel, anything will do.
Cordelia searched for Clarence's chisel and came upon her likeness.
Oh, he wasn't.
Just then, a deafening sound filled the mine. It was like the loudest clap of thunder you ever heard. Fault lines crisscrossed the walls. Huge chunks of salt came crashing down. Cordelia cried.
What have I done?
The mine was trembling, salt and flying everywhere. The princess couldn't breathe. Rubble was piling higher and higher. She scrambled up the steps. At the very top, she heard the pounding. The mine opened. Just in time, Clarence reached and pulled Cordelia out. Cordelia and her father talked, and the king said,
I'm so sorry for kicking him out, but now I know what your sentence meant and I regret it.
That's okay.
Cordelia went to Clarence and also apologized.
I'm so sorry for sending you away.
No problem.
Princess Cordelia and Baron Clarence were married. Secretly and in accordance with an ancient rite, the king consecrated their marriage with salt. Everyone rejoiced, yay! Except Goneril and Regan. The day arrived